Verrückte Salt. Sociopaths of Reddit, what made you realize that you are one? And did you try to change anything? I was diagnosed with ASPD. I have almost all the markers. I've always known I was different, but I didn't have a word for it. I don't consider it a sickness. In fact, there are no drawbacks. I never tried to change. But with that said, I'm not being myself around other people. Social interactions are just a game that I happen to be very good at. How you should behave in the interaction depends on what you want from that person. If you just want them to be friends with you, try to make them think as highly as possible about you, which means you have to know what qualities they value in their friends. If you're meeting for the first time, try to keep it casual. Be social, confident, and charming. Body language is most important. Practicing scenarios is good. I actually did this myself because I was really bad at looking sad. Just stand in front of the mirror and rehearse. Diagnosed multiple times in my life, as was my father and my brothers. We all have it to varying degrees. There's a lot of myths and false information out there about sociopathy. Most of us just fake it and try to fit in. It is actually more common amongst those with a higher intellect. We are not all killers and out to destroy things. Dexter is not a real example of sociopathy. You have to feel to want to destroy, but it is like not really caring in a way, at least for me. And I'm not talking about the emo I don't care. It is a total lack and void of emotional response to people and so forth. I have to fight to forge real, meaningful interpersonal relationships. Basically, I have to fight to care. I'm a minor case, as it were. My brother is a much more severe case, but when he had kids, he admitted he felt love for the first time. It is really hard to describe it to someone. I guess I kind of realized I was sort of a sociopath when I was 15 and got really close to someone. This girl and I became friends, and eventually we got into a conversation about how we think and how we perceive things, and it came to the subject of life. I began talking about how I could take a life without a reason and not feel bad about it at all. I told her how I didn't feel bad about 9/11 victims and all. And yes, I understand that was a horrible event in US history. She said that I was not normal at all. Why she didn't stop talking to me then and there, I don't know. Maybe she's the same way. And as far as empathy goes, it does not exist in my head. For example, last night my friend, the girl I was just talking about, was beaten by her older brother, and unlike a normal person, I didn't feel bad even though she was the closest friend I have. But of course, I acted like I cared and said I'm very angry, but in reality, I didn't give a fuck. But of course, I'm not going to actually say that or act like that. Recently, I've been talking to this girl, I guess I would call my girlfriend. I will never tell her about my lack of empathy or anything of the things mentioned above. She cannot know. As far as using people goes, I've done it plenty of times without even realizing it. With no effort. Just happened. For example, I would always use one of my friends as a way to find a place to crash after partying or being out, but I would never hang out with him or anything. It wasn't until recently that I realized I was just using him for his house, that I could sleep at if I didn't feel like finding a way to my home, which is a few miles out of the main town I go to frequently. I try not to use people, and I attempt to be a real friend, but it usually just doesn't happen. Aside from a very small number of people I've been able to have real friendships with. That number is dwindling though. The only time in my life I've ever come close to empathizing was when my dog of 12 or 13 years died. I was upset about it for an hour, but that's it. I'm not sure, but I think most people would be pretty upset if their dog they had for a long time died. I don't know, it's just the way I am and I wouldn't want to change it. No, I don't hurt people or animals. I could though. And sometimes I do feel the impulse to hurt someone. But it's never been a problem aside from one time when there was a stray dog on my street. I was walking and it walked up to me, and for some reason unknown, I smacked that dog in the face pretty damn hard for no reason. It whimpered away, and that was it. I didn't do anything else for fear of people around me might be watching. I would never want to change who I am, though. Being almost emotionless enables me to stay calm in literally almost any situation. I do not care for a single thing in the world, and I like it that way. Thought I'd recognize more people from r/sociopath here. Note that self-diagnosing is looked down upon, but who's going to voluntarily get diagnosed for the sake of ethos? To answer your question, OP, I started to notice I was a bit different around 12 years old. So did my mother, who even called me a sociopath. But I didn't know what it meant at that point. Then, as years went on, and I learned more of the topic, I began to realize I could relate to almost all major ASPD symptoms. I've said before on Reddit that I discerned my sense of empathy was really just an understanding of the concept, rather than actually feeling it, etc. Also, going with the idea that psychopaths are born and sociopaths are raised, I would say it's more like I'm the former. I haven't tried to change it. I don't know how I would do that. I do lots of community service and have helped those less fortunate than me. I've been doing this since elementary school. My empathy was never enhanced by those experiences. I do not mind being this way. It doesn't affect my life much. I don't do destructive things like manipulation, as I think it's normally petty and useless. I am a bored person, but I wouldn't change myself. I've always had a hunch. I have what I call situational empathy, where I can tell why somebody made the decision they made, but I failed to sympathize with it. I was in denial for a long time, but I have a very dark sense of humor and am utterly unfazed by things that make others uncomfortable. I'm an interesting conversationalist to some, and unhinging to others. I really noticed after dating another sociopath. I was enraged by her behavior, and after we broke up, I realized everything I hated about her is everything that I myself was. So I've changed to cut out certain bad habits like lying when it isn't necessary, and speaking when I have no reason to speak, trying to filter myself, and at the very least, pretending to sympathize with the hardships of others. I even once took an EQ test which I scored very, very low on, 26, contrary to my IQ test, 141. I guess I always knew I was different than other people. I really think I figured it out when my grandmother died, and everyone else was sad, and I just wanted to know what was for dinner. I didn't find out until later on in life that I see people way differently than most people do. I see it like this. Other people are just tools for me to use as I see fit. That doesn't mean I treat people badly. It's just like any other tool, really. If you want that tool to last a lifetime, you have to take care of it when you're done using it. Just like a lawnmower. When you're done mowing the lawn, you don't just leave it sitting out to be rained on. You clean it off, wipe it down, and put it in the shed to use again later. Only in my life, the lawnmower is a family member, coworker, or friend that I need a favor from. If I find out that they will be more of a burden than an asset, I just end the relationship with them. And as for the second part of your question, I haven't tried to change myself because I don't see anything wrong with the way I think and feel. Edit. I should add my grandmother died from stage 4 cancer in my living room, with everyone standing around her except me. I was in the other room playing music and talking to people on the net. I'm going to use a throwaway for this for obvious reasons, I should hope. To give you a general background, I'm a female. I'm in my early mid-20s. I have a PhD and a fiancé. I live in the US, but I'm from Canada. I've been diagnosed with sociopathic tendencies, as well as high-functioning autism. I knew I was not like the other kids right away when I started school. I didn't really care or have a want for friends. I'd play with the other kids because I was bored, but if I had something better to do, I'd be doing that instead. I felt no emotion towards my family. I still don't. I spend time with them occasionally, but not because I have a desire to. I can honestly say, I don't love my parents or my sister. When I was young, I would flat out tell people I didn't, and then I would get told, "Oh hush, you love your sister. You just don't get along with her sometimes," which is very untrue, and I couldn't comprehend why people would insist that. My whole childhood, I saw family members as a means to an end. I tolerated my younger sister because I could make her do things for me, but that's all she is to me. So, to directly answer you, I've known something was off for a very long time. I didn't know exactly what, though. I only recently got diagnosed. I haven't made an attempt really as far as the general population goes. I don't care a single bit about the homeless, or about the children who died when an apartment building burned down last week. I also don't care about most family members still. My grandfather just got diagnosed with terminal cancer last month, and I don't care. I have friends that I choose to care about, and I have a fiancé. I don't really know how to explain my relationship with them, but it's different because I make myself make it different. I didn't know the name for it, but I knew I was different since I was around 5. When my parents divorced, everyone was always screaming and crying, and I didn't feel anything. Just empty, not in a sad or depressing way, sort of blank. So I pretended to be upset. I'd throw over-the-top tantrums. Looking back, it's kind of ridiculous. I'd scream, teach myself to cry, and play woe is me. Everyone thought, poor her, she's taking it so hard. And it had no actual effect on me. My best friend and next-door neighbor since birth, her sister was murdered when we were in elementary. Again, just the blank slate feeling. But I saw her cry at the funeral and decided it would be a good idea for me to do the same. I cut her out of my life sometime in high school because I just didn't feel the need for her friendship anymore. I was well aware of how to manipulate people. I often think of situations in terms of probability. How likely is it I can get X to do Y? X will feel Z, and me and Q will happen if I want it to. I say and do things because I know they're right. On the contrary, my opinions are genuine, so there's that. I think I realized how bad it was one year into working retail. Mind you, I'm unofficially diagnosed with something that's probably bad, considering I still piss my bed sometimes and actively think about death and murdering people. A summary of a serious statement, but you must know it's well under control, as far as I feel. Anyways, I tend to have explosive bursts of rage, anger, hate, among other things, but they only last for a day. The next day, it's like I was drunk. I can recognize how I was, but I don't fully remember what I did. This resulted in an irrationally hateful mindset, where anyone I deemed even remotely bad needed to seriously die. I got this with one of my managers. He toyed with my emotions unknowingly so much, to the point that I would absolutely lose it at home and tear myself apart, until one day when it all just clicked. These people, like my manager, needed to die. So superiors and customers alike, no matter how bad, would get a bittersweet treatment. Kill them with kindness is what my brother said to me. Close friends got a taste, and so did family. Next thing I knew, I hated everyone and wanted to personally see them all to their graves. But I talked to them kindly, genuinely. If they had a problem, I would move heaven and earth to help them. But I fucking hated their guts and truthfully wanted them to connect with my bumper. Looking at myself from the outside in, I knew there was something up, so I went online and began typing in all the symptoms. I got a lot of results that I don't want to mention, and one was sociopath, or something close at least. I mean, I didn't want to Google diagnose myself, but the foot fit the shoe damn near perfectly. I didn't dispute it, and so I rolled with it. Edit. At 19, I'm a work in progress. I've gotten significantly better with some of the things I have stated. However, developing new connections is hard, unless I can gear my mind to think in such a way that someone/something is actually important. More often than not, I can get myself to think that way, to where I actually develop a connection. Sadly, I have had to do this with my poor baby cousins, who I do love so much as I speak. I'd give a Colombian necktie to the first person to ever wrong them. I have a very odd issue. I can be empathetic if I want, or I can choose not to be. I found out when I was around 10, and when I was around 15, I was diagnosed with ASPD. My social skills are terrible, except when it comes to manipulating. I'm very, very good at that, and I worryingly do it for no reason besides to cause issues. Like, I worked my way up the ladder at my school's IT system in high school, managed to get the passwords to the main grading system, and just fucked with people's grades and watched their reaction. Sticking Fs on the A Asian students always yielded the best results. I got caught doing that, and the IT manager lost his job. I thought it was hilarious. If I feel like being empathetic, I can be, or at least I'm good at pretending to be, but I can literally change this at a split second's notice. Relationship breakups have been spectacular because of this. I wish I had a normal brain, because I still look for friendships. But my social skills are bad because I can't quite relate to why something is wrong. Must have been around puberty. I started to notice I didn't experience things the same way others did. I'm a sensitive person in the sense that I pick up on a lot of my environment, but not in an emotional way. I feel blessed because from my point of view, people are ruled by emotions. They don't appear free to me. Without emotion, social interaction became awkward for a while, and I understood the benefits of fitting in. For a while, I was angry that I had to act whenever I was around people, because truly being myself and saying what I thought would always upset them. Later, I came to an understanding that everyone is acting. It's just that most people don't realize they are. They are operating on a false sense of identity that was built up out of a multitude of emotional imprints. To me, that's like a scab behind which their true self lies, the part of them that sees things as they are, without the emotional bias. Eventually, I got over my frustration with being different and took to heart the fact that I have a huge advantage in this world, especially when it comes to dealing with people. I don't think I'm mean. People take advantage of each other all the time. It's not a bad thing, it just means we do things for each other. It's just that, again, most people don't seem to realize they take advantage of each other. For a while, I traveled the world. I never worked. I'd just meet people and made them like me to the point that they'd let me stay at their place. Sometimes I was given the key to someone's house while they went on vacation. I befriended a lot of rich people who found joy in giving me money. I always read a lot of books on psychology, anything that had to do with the workings of the human psyche and the game of social interaction. I became obsessed with the unraveling and subsequent exploitation of it all. The most vulnerable thing I'm willing to admit is that I believe sociopaths are more advanced human beings. I used to have major issues with narcissism, and it can still affect me to this day. It wasn't really that I couldn't feel empathy for other people. It's just that I followed the examples set forth by my dad and my stepmother. They tend to believe that they know everything, do not show empathy with others, and if another person does something that they do not agree with, they will automatically judge and criticize that person. Then they just justify it by saying they're only trying to help. That is what I used to do to other people, and I didn't understand the negative impact it had. I always struggled making friends with other people and maintaining those friendships. I also had this girlfriend at the time that started pointing these things out to me. She was the first person to actually say something to me about it, instead of just avoiding me. At first, I denied it and told her that I'm just trying to help. But after a while, I started to recognize the things I was doing and how it was affecting people. Then I started to realize where it was coming from after paying more attention to what my parents were saying to me. And then it finally all clicked for me during a conversation that I was having with my stepmother. There was a year during my life that I had no one I could talk to outside of my family. It was a very depressing year for me because no one would talk to me. I called my stepmother to talk about it and get some advice like how I would always do. At one point during the conversation, she said, "No one wants to be friends with you because they're intimidated by your intelligence." That's when it all sunk in, that my social issues were really my fault. I was blaming my social problems on everyone else, and I had learned that behavior from my father and stepmother. I've worked hard on reversing my past behaviors with people and learned not to rely on my parents' advice. I now have some really great friends, and now I have a much easier time interacting with people. I'm a much happier person now. The first telltale sign for me was being able to drop people from my life in an instant and feel no remorse, negative feelings, or grief whatsoever. It was like I was discarding a cigarette butt, except they were people. Didn't matter if I knew them for a few months or more than a decade. Cold surgical excision, and then it's gone from my mind. I also cannot empathize with people. I can somewhat imagine how I'm supposed to do it, but I just can't. I lie without a conscience. I judge family members as severely as I would complete strangers, etc. I have for several years now intentionally studied how to be as charming as possible. Think a regular George Sanders. I can go from nice to evil in a heartbeat. I have no morals. I once slept with my best friend's girlfriend on his birthday. I have intentionally sabotaged relationships, both working and romantic, in order to achieve my desires. Loads more shit. I have ISD-10. I say horrible things to people impulsively. My brain knows it's wrong, but it can't control it. I say whatever's on my mind at all times. I've lost several friends. I try to hide it from my family. I've learned to control it around loved ones, but sometimes it slips. The only people who know I suffer from this are my father and my fiancé. I have a hard time taking anything seriously. Everything's a game to me. How long can I manipulate this sad person until they crack? I get some kind of sick kick out of it. I realized from a very young age that I was different. I was assessed as a child and proclaimed to possess genius-level intelligence, so I naturally assumed that the disconnect I felt was from that. But as I got older, it became more and more evident that something else was the reason for this complete lack of care and empathy. I actually stumbled upon the term sociopath on a Google search, funny enough. I don't view it as a handicap though. I actually consider it to be a definite advantage to my daily life. As annoying as it is to pretend to care about the trivial matters of everyone else's lives and play along in the social norms, I am still able to be separated from the emotion of it, the thing that clouds judgment. I generally operate on a, how interesting is this? I'm bored, done, basis, instead of actually being emotionally attached to the outcome of the situation. I can manipulate my life and social situations to my advantage without a second thought. The downside I find is that normal people's limitations and stupidity make me murderously angry. Not gonna lie, I can get extremely violent thoughts and usually will get my aggression out by hunting/fishing. Cleaning the carcasses usually controls my impulses enough that I can continue with my goals. I am 100% sure the only reason I haven't killed anyone yet is because murder would get in the way of my long-term goals for the moment. I love the way I can give one cold look to someone and scare them shitless. The way I talk repulsed men and women alike. It's actually a truly wonderful feeling to have that control over someone. You've stayed a while and listened. Here's a side quest. Head to the comments and tell me your favorite season. And be on the lookout, as I may just personally thank you in a future video. Please enjoy the rest of these stories. I guess I'm a little late to the party, but I still want to throw my answer in. I didn't have an aha moment exactly. It was more of a gradual thing. I always had this question which basically boiled down to, who decided how we should react to things? It took me a long time to realize that the way people react to bad news, or someone being mean to them, or even someone doing something nice for them, wasn't always rehearsed. It actually makes sense if you think about it. A lot of movies and TV shows show people rehearsing in front of the mirror, which I've actually never done. I just always thought that's how people played the game. As far as social interactions, I would mimic people who elicited whatever I considered to be the best responses. For example, when someone tells me what I should consider to be bad news, or if something bad happens to me, I can use that as an excuse to get them to stop talking to me or go away. I learned to cry on command because it's intrinsically useful to be able to do so. No one knows how to react to a grown man crying, but the most useful thing I found is simply learning people's secrets. I understand I don't tell a secret once I learn it. I hold on to it. I don't use it against the person, or at least not directly. People hate keeping secrets, and if you prove that you can keep theirs, basically so they have someone they can talk to about it, they'll do nearly anything for you. More importantly, they'll spy for you. They'll repeat absolutely anything that anyone says about you back to you, and many times defend you when it's said. And they love to brag about how they defended you. The only truly bad thing about all of it is that you pick up bad habits and behaviors from the people you actually have feelings for. My close circle of friends know how I am, but it's still sort of weird for them when I find out a family member died or is dying, and my reaction is, okay. One of the things that I've picked up is breathing out slowly and then saying it with an inflection as though it's some sort of burden. Several things. I have yet to feel anything besides anger or indifference. My grandmother who raised me died? Meh. My mother died. She was resuscitated at the hospital. Meh. Landed a huge contract? Cool, I guess. Finished a big project? Okay, now I can continue on to the next one. Piss me off. Commenter smash. I'm okay with this. I have absolutely no problem throwing people under the bus if it's beneficial to me. Of course, I'm super selective about it because it's all about the long con for me. In fact, I have told several people, if I can turn a profit killing you, I would without hesitation. If I can get 55,000 of benefits from you dead, and it'll cost me 50,000 to do it, you'd be dead right now. I won't even lose a blink of sleep over it. For years, I had an obsession with completely destroying women emotionally. If I was able to drive one to suicide, I didn't that I'm aware of, it would have been the Holy Grail. My main objective was the same. Find one that's insecure. Pro tip, they all are. Start talking to them. Slowly start building their confidence, while making them think that I'm the only person who cares about them. Slowly eliminate their social circle. Treat them like a queen and make them think, wow, my life is finally starting to go right. Tell them I love you. Talk about marriage and how they're my soulmate. Then, when I see they actually bought everything, pick something, anything, to stop the charade. Tell them it was all a lie, that they're fat, ugly, whatever else they've admitted to being insecure about, that no one would ever love them. They are not worthy of being loved, that I only used them and they are worthless, less than human beings. I would do this with multiple women at a time too. I've done this with over a dozen women. I don't do this anymore, though. I used to be a lot worse. I've changed significantly in the past 3 years. I've been working a lot on changing that. I hate the word, but yes, I'm a sociopath. I prefer apathic, the opposite of empathic, because I don't consider what I have to be any more of a pathology than the fact that I am gay. It's not average, and it presents certain complications in one's life, but it doesn't have to be a negative. I figured out I was different at about age 9, while it took me until I was in my mid-teens to figure out my sexual orientation. I've never tried to change either part of myself, because firstly, I'm not unhappy this way, and secondly, I don't think it would work. I actually feel that being apathic is a beneficial characteristic in my profession, which is going to come as a surprise to many. I'm a surgeon, and for fuck's sake, I'm not a serial killer. I've never killed anything more evolved than a fly. Moreover, assuming that I'm a killer because I'm apathic is as accurate as assuming that I'm a pedophile because I'm gay. I enjoy being a surgeon for many reasons, and I'm not being narcissistic when I say my patients and colleagues think I'm a great surgeon. I do a great job, and I take pride in that fact. The reason that being apathic makes me a better surgeon is that I have the mother of all dispassionate assessments of my patients. If I really think someone would be better off not having surgery, I'm never cajoled by them playing on my emotions to do it. When the shit hits the fan, I think more clearly than others. This is not to say that my colleagues fly into a panic in stressful situations, but that I have perhaps a 25% advantage over them in that area. I also honestly think I'm better able to make medically more ethical decisions. Again, not being swayed by my patients tugging at my emotions. The medical ethics, and ethics in general, is where I think most people misunderstand apathics. I have a very strong ethical belief system. The difference is that my understanding of ethics is more intellectual than emotional. I full well understand that causing unnecessary pain or killing someone is wrong, which is why I don't do it. I even honestly see some empathics as being less moral simply because they let their emotions rule their decisions. For example, all of the conservative idiots who object to welfare and social programs because they feel that it's not right that someone gets something for nothing. Why should I care if someone gets something better? Moreover, given that we could save a significant amount of tax dollars if we just provided everyone a guaranteed minimum income to provide for food, clothing, and shelter, it's idiotic to pay more to provide the poor with less and treat them shitty while doing so. But can we be dispassionate about how we solve social problems in the US? No, because all of the empathic idiots who are allowed to vote. Perhaps the single thing that I really dislike about being empathic is having to pretend to be empathic. Don't get me wrong, I'm very good at it. It's a time and energy suck. However, if I were out of the apathic closet, in the same way that I'm openly gay, I would very likely ruin my career. I would likely lose my job, and it would be a tremendous liability any time I was sued for malpractice. So I've stayed scrupulously closeted about this, and think I likely will for most of my life. I don't even mind putting the empathy disguise for my patients, because that is accepted. But I really have to stay in stealth mode 24/7. If you like listening to stories read by an actual person, look no further. That's right, I will never utilize an AI voice to tell these stories. Please support this channel by hitting like and subscribing. Yours truly, Verrückte Salt.